further ado, let's get along with the video. So, last time we learned that two triangles make up a square. And we also learned when we see this symbol on top of a number, it means that number is multiplied by itself. Now, we have to find the square of these numbers. So, let's look at the first question. 5 squared. So what do we have to do? Well, remember, when we see this symbol, it means the number is multiplied by itself. So to find 5 squared, we need to multiply 5 times 5. And we know what 5 times 5 is. That's 25. Yippee! Now we have 10 squared. We have this symbol, which means we know that 10 is multiplied by itself. That means this is 100. So 10 squared equals 100. Now, the last one, 13 squared. 13 squared means 13 times 13, which is 169. That's it. Now, we're going to be learning about square roots. If you watched my last video on squares and square roots, you'll know, if you haven't, please go back and watch it and come, because this is going to really help you. I said that square roots are the complete opposite of squares. We have a word for opposite in math. What is it? Exactly, inverse. So like addition is the inverse of subtraction, squares are the inverse of square roots. Now, we have to find the square root of 25. This question is basically asking us what number multiplied by itself gives 25. We know that number, don't we? What two numbers make up 25? Exactly, 5 times 5 gives us 25. So, the square root of 25 is 5. Now let's move on to the next question. The square root of 100. What two numbers, and when I say what two numbers, what number multiplied by itself gives us 100? We know that too. 10 times 10 gives 100. So the square root of 100 must be 10. And now the last one is the square root of 169. Do we know any two numbers that make up 169? We do, and that's 13. So the square root of 169 is 13. Yep, I haven't forgotten about the trick of the day. So our first question here is 100 minus 48. Of course, you can do it the normal way by doing the column method, but that is time consuming, and you don't want to be late when you're writing an exam, for example. Now, what would you usually do when you do the column method? When you subtract, you do the borrowing method. Now, we are going to do the same thing, but we're not going to put it down, and you're not going to do the column method. But we're going to try to do the same thing in our mind, mentally. So how are we going to do this? We know when we always do the borrowing method, when there are zeros, we have to borrow from the 1, and this is going to become a 10, and then we have to borrow again to make this one a 10, and this will be a 9. Isn't that right? So, what we have to do is subtract 8 from 10 and 4 from 9. And of course we borrowed this, so this is going to become a 0. This 1, I'm going to strike it out because we're going to borrow it to this 0. And this 0 is going to become a 10. But oh wait, we have this 0. So I guess we have to do the borrowing again, but this time from the 10. So I'm going to cut the 10 out, and that's going to become a 9 because we're going to borrow 1 from it, and this is going to become a 10. Now it's easy, right? First we have to do 8 subtracted from 10. What's 8 subtracted from 10? It's 2. And remember, make sure this 2 has to be in the units digit. Do not get muddled up. And now we have to subtract a 4 from 9. And that is a 5. And we just leave the 0, which used to be a 1. And now we have the answer, 52. Now we have a bit of a harder question. This time we have 1,000 minus 368. But we do the same steps, so it's easy. First, we have to borrow the 1. We're going to cut that out, and we're going to add it there, and that's going to become a 10. But then we have these 2 numbers, so I'm going to cut that, and it's going to become a 9, and this is going to become a 10. But we have this 0, so we have to cut it, and that's going to be a 9, and this one is going to become a 10. So what pattern do you observe? Only the last 0 is always going to become a 10. The other zeros before the last 0 is always going to become a 9. So let's do this. Now, we have to subtract 8 from 10. And we know the answer, that's 2. Now we need to subtract 6 from 9. And that is a 3. And now we have to subtract a 3 from a 9, which is going to give us a 6. And that's a 0, so we don't have to do anything with that. So this is our answer, 632. So this is the last question. And this time, I'm not going to write all the steps down. Instead, we're going to do this mentally. So let's do this. Now, remember, only the last one's going to become a 10. So these 2 are going to become a 9. And remember, we still have to borrow. So that's going to become a 4. Now, all we have to do is subtract. 10 minus 1 is a 9. 9 minus 8 is going to become a 1. 9 minus 6 is going to become a 3. And there's a 4. So our answer, 4,319. Hope you liked the video and make sure to like, share and subscribe to both my channels, Learning Time with Dyuti and my other channel, Reading Time with Dyuti. I'll see you later.